In today's video, we're going to show you how to use our FOLD-em templates to make cards like this. This is the number 2 template sample. I want to remind you that you should at this time have already watched our Cutting Basics tutorial. We give you some very good tips and show you the proper tools to use for making cutting very easy, whether or not you're using metal templates like this or the pop-up templates, or even freehand cutting. Here we have the number 2 template already attached to some of our pearlescent plume paper. You want to use a good quality removable tape. We sell a removable reusable tape. It looks like masking tape, but is far from it. It will not damage your card when you lift it back up. As you saw in the Cutting Basics tutorial, we told you to use a number 16 blade. That's this one I have in my hand here. It's very important to use this one. Hold the knife straight up and down when you're cutting. When you're cutting with a metal template, look at your design to see if you have any corners. This is a corner up here. You always want to start at the corners and cut out away from it. So make sure you get the tip of your blade right into the corner, holding your knife straight up and down, and cut down to the end of that slit. Now, before you even start this process, I want you to take a sample piece of the paper that you're going to be using. And without the template, start off of the paper, make a little light slit across the corner. You probably won't cut it. Press a little bit harder, until you get the feel for just the amount of pressure that it's going to take to cut through that paper. You're going to be very surprised sometimes with a brand new blade. It does not take much pressure to make those cuts. But back to our cutting. We made the cut from the corner down on this side, so then we're going to turn our template, go back to the corner, and we're going to cut down the other side. Now when you're cutting in these slits, you're not trying to run the knife down the middle of the slit. You're actually putting side pressure toward the outside edge of that slit so that the slit is actually guiding your knife. But after you've made that first pair of cuts, turn your paper over, look at the back to make sure you have a nice clean cut. If not, do the next slit, try to make it better, and don't continue on until you make sure you're making nice cuts. Now notice the paper here is white in the back. With FOLD-em templates, you want to make sure that you use paper that's different color or pattern front and back. That makes it a lot better design. Here on this sample, you can see the blue and the white. The white is actually the back of that paper. If you can't find paper that is already a different color on the back, take 2 thin pieces of paper and attach them together with a Xyron or something like that. Just be careful if you get any paper that's too thick. Even if you can cut it, you may have a difficult time folding it without having it break on the fold. So experiment with that a little bit. Anyway, after you feel comfortable with making all of your cuts, that you're doing it correctly, just make all of those cuts. Now you can do all of them down one side. And when you're cutting, it works best if you're cutting toward the elbow of your cutting hand. And always cut in that same direction. You don't want to be turning it like this and cutting away a different direction. You won't be consistent in your cutting. After you've made all the cuts down one side, turn your work, go back up to the corners, and cut all of the rest of them. Now after you think you've made all your cuts, before you take the template off, turn it over and just kind of take a look to make sure you haven't missed any cuts. If you have, you want to make those cuts before you remove the template. Now if there's one that you see that you may not have gotten cut through all the way, wait, and when you take the template off, then you can finish those cuts. Now when you take the template off, since this is removable reusable tape, you can use it several times if you avoid touching it with your fingers. So just grab the paper and the template with your fingers and pull it off like that. And then you can take your template with the tape already on it, put it off somewhere else, and then you can use it later on. Next, we want to take our folding aid, this little metal bar, and you want to fold each of the flaps. Now if you notice on the template here, we have big slits and little slits. Big slits and little slits. Those form big flaps, like that, and little flaps, like that. We're going to fold all of the big flaps over, and you want to start at the bottom and work up. You want to work in the direction of the arrows. If you start at the top, and you fold this flap, then you put it in the way of the next one, you got to move it out of the way and you've defeated the purpose. So start at the bottom with your folding, slip the folding aid under the big flap, fold it over, and I like to do this right in my hand rather than laying it down in between each one of those flaps. So just get it folded over. You don't have to get it totally flat because we're going to do something else to help that. Just make sure you get them over at least halfway. Then you can take a roller creaser like this and roll those flaps down a little bit. It'll give them a little bit better crease. It won't roll them totally flat, but it will get them better for you. Then, in 9 out of the 10 cases with the FOLD-em templates, the big flap will tuck under the little flap like that. Then we can mount that. Use your roller to roll it again, give it a little better crease. Then you can attach that to a piece of different colored paper to give it that contrast. And then we put that on a card and end up with something like this.